Oh, you might say, your religion's very repetitive, Marshall. Well, it is, because there isn't, in a sense, much to be said. Only the same thing in different ways. It's incredibly simple, isn't it? And there is a tendency to dismiss some religious people as just simple-minded. Others are anything but simple-minded, and they're such fanatics and pain in the neck that you just want to get away from them and have a bit more personal space. And that's not the ideal to be at all, is it? Because you want to be a blessing to people. And that is it when I'm at a meeting. Even if I'm supposedly leading the meeting, I'm trying desperately not to. I'm trying to, well, literally leave it to God to do something wonderful. My trusting that he can and will do something wonderful has become a habit. And certainly I contribute in my tiny way. I sort of think, I wonder what would be helpful. And I might watch or read something that I think could be helpful in that regard. This might grab them, this might be a blessing to the group. This might inspire them. But I'm not there to teach them and lay down the law or force my view on them. I want them to be blessed in their understanding of blessing, because I trust already that God loves them to bits, you see. It's not that they have to come into a certain relationship for them to be loved of God. They're kids. And I love all kids. How much more God? I've slightly overstated my view, of course. I expect. But you know what I mean, don't you? If we love kids, how much more does God? And I find it most reasonable to want to trust him, to be loving and caring where I cannot be, or where I'm inadequate, or where I make mistakes. I trust him utterly for my mistakes. An all-powerful God that loves me is well able to use my mistakes to great blessing and benefit. And you think, well, is this in some sense cauterizing or neutralizing your ability to be a creative, lovely being yourself? I don't think so, no. I find it's incredibly supportive and encouraging. I risk things that you might think other people wouldn't dream of risking. I speak in public as if I have a confidence that, well, an ego that goes through the ceiling, but it's not that. It's that my trust in God gives the appearance of absurd confidence. And it is an absurd confidence, but it's not actually in me. It's in this relationship I have with my God. Well, I actually believe he's your God as well, of course. It's just that I just know we have the variety of children's views of our parents that we do have. Every child sees mum and dad differently, I think, according to their own childish, yes, personality, but, well, that's going to mature by and by. That's what we're doing here. We're growing up at a fantastic rate. And I'm not of the opinion I need a million reincarnations. Oh, my God's most able. One childhood's enough, thank you. Or perhaps it's my nth. But I don't need to need more. I'll bet he can cover everything in a moment of time. It's just that I trust this is the best way that he's chosen. That this is the best way. And he's using time to do it. Oh, does that mean he's bound by time? No, he may have just created time because it's a good dimension in which to have a classroom. But his state of being may be quite outside of time, even outside of cause and effect. In other words, I'm saying that what I'm going to become may be utterly beyond the child's comprehension. I've no idea what mum and dad do when they go to work, say. They both tend to go to work these days. My mum didn't. She'd like to have done, but Dad didn't want the disgrace of his wife having to work. And she didn't, of course, because Dad was wealthy. But Mum would have loved to work because she wanted to get out of the house. More than you can otherwise in a modern society, perhaps. Well, I suppose she could have been a great socialite, you know. But she wasn't that sort. She wanted to be a great mum to me. Bless her. Wow, what a blessing. I wish she'd been a greater blessing to Dad, though. She did want to be. I mean, she was a wonderful housekeeper. She made all her own dresses and clothes. Well, a lot of them, you know. She loved me to bits, but she didn't love him. But they were from like chalk and cheese. He was right wing, she was left. He'd been rich, she'd been poor. She was young and beautiful. And I suppose he felt older by comparison, but he felt mature, of course, and stable. We're all children, that's the problem. And I'm afraid we choose best friends and then we're horrible to them, possibly by mistake, and then it all goes to custard and it's a sad tale, isn't it? But it's less of a sad tale if you can come to mum or dad into their arms and embrace, and you just know in your heart that it will all be well. And it is all well somehow in their good company. And yes, the supposition of God is because we long for a father or a mother figure to replace perhaps some idealistic view of what childhood could or may have been. And what's so terribly wrong with that if you find it works? Taste and see. Bless you, and you are blessed. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. Hey, let me add a note. This is a couple of days later. There are no shadows with God. With God, everything generates light because everything is, well, his thoughts. It's all his. There's no shadows. It's not, I heard somewhere, a near-death experience who's explaining this lady that in a sort of understanding of reincarnation and karma, that there were shadows left from previous incarnations, and these have to be dealt with God, because Otherwise they hold us back and bind us to, I don't know, more and more incarnations. I think that was her drift. Well, I know what she's saying. And I suppose I'm saying now that, yes, she's dealing with the shadows by taking them to God and, I suppose, in a sense, asking forgiveness, because in her mind there's blame, and that's why the shadows are there. But it's in her mind. God's mind, I was going to say, overshadows this. And it's pure light. He takes your mistakes and turns them into a blessing. You know, you long for the ice cream, perhaps it's not good for you. Lets you have one. In what sense does it become a blessing? Because you so appreciate his kindness. It helps you love God. Love your parent more. And that's an incredible blessing, because you're therefore more easily led of their kindness instead of one's own less reliable fancy. Do you see, he turns our shadows into light. For all live unto him. All things are a blessing in his loving competence. That's a good phrase. Sounds a bit analytical, the word competence, but the word loving improves it greatly, doesn't it? Do you see? I trust him for what I see as a difficulty. It's my joy to trust him. My dad can do anything. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above in wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God. He dwells in us, and we in him. Don't believe me? Read John 17 again. So we come to know him, and that is life eternal, to know thee, the only true God. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.